is a project of the Institute for the Critical Study of Society, which was formed about 10 years ago in order to further the library's goals of providing research and educational support to the working class in its struggle for peace, social justice, and environmental sustainability, and of course socialism. So the Institute is made up of a number of scholars and students, some of whom are members of disciplined parties, some of whom are members of undisciplined parties, some of us are independents. So none of our programs represent a grouped consensus on the issues that are being presented. We are different people, but we all share in common a respect for the work of Karl Marx and a belief that his work will be as important for the class struggles of the future as they have been for the class struggles of the past. And so we've had a number of distinguished speakers here, none more distinguished than Grover Furr, who we consider one of our own, even though he lives on the wrong side of the Sierra Nevadas. He comes out, and we appreciate it. So here we'll have a brief fund appeal after he talks, but I've asked Raj to give a brief introduction to Grover and his talk.
Okay, most of you, thank you, Gene. Most of you know Grover Furr, and he needs no introduction to most of you, but I've been asked, so I'm going to do a very brief introduction. He graduated from McGill University, 1965, with BA in English. He received his PhD in comparative literature from Princeton University in 1978, and he has been teaching since February 1970. He's been teaching at Montclair. Montclair State University. He teaches medieval English literature. However, he also speaks Russian, writes Russian. He's learned that a long time ago, and he's been doing research in Stalin-era Russian, Soviet history. Among his books and pamphlets is evidence of Leon Trotsky's collaboration with Germany and Japan. It's 2009, and he's now presently writing a biography of Leon Trotsky in the period 1930 to 1940. That's his current research, and he's deriving today's lecture out of that research. Of course, his best-known book is Khrushchev Lied, 2011, The Murder of Sergei Kirov, 2013, and Blood Lies, 2014. In May and October last year, he was invited by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. MAH00004 is a researcher at the Russia, Eastern Europe, Central Asia Research Institute of the Academy. Wrote in an article on Khrushchev Lied that Grover first concerned that the results of his research would not be believed, did not prevent his comprehensive, detailed, and in-depth research into this sacred speech of Khrushchev. He was listed by David Horowitz, this is another accomplishment of his, Front Magazine, editor, conservative, as one of the 101 most dangerous academics in America. I believe Stalin-era history has to be given a historical materialist basis. And if we are ever to hope to succeed in our common project, that is communism, we have to look at it realistically and honestly. So his talk today is titled, "You're Not Going to Believe This." Leon Trotsky collaborated with the Japanese. You're not going to believe it, but it's true. Leon Trotsky collaborated with the Japanese. How do we know this is true? He will explain. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Raj. Yes, the topic of my talk, let me just restate it, is, you're not going to believe this, but it's true. Leon Trotsky collaborated with the Japanese. How do we know that this is true? A discussion of historical methodology. Good afternoon. Actually, it's still good morning, right? I picked the wording of the title of this talk with some care. I'm going to talk about belief, skepticism, historical truth, and how we know it, and historical methodology generally. Let me start off, though, with a brief anecdote. There's a story, a myth about ostriches, which we're all familiar with, which is that when an ostrich sees something that he doesn't like, he or she doesn't like, whether it's something dangerous or something just unpleasant, that the ostrich hides his or her head in the sand, right? And thereby thinks that the unpleasant or dangerous situation is no longer present because he or she no longer sees it. Now, in fact, I've been informed reliably that ostriches are far too intelligent to act this way. But human beings, unfortunately, are not far too intelligent to act this way. All of us, frequently become enslaved by our preconceived ideas and hide our heads from the truth, as it were, in the sand. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about this kind of thing. I see somebody's coming in, so I'm going to pause until he comes in. Raj said that I'm writing a biography of Trotsky in the 30s. That's not really true, but I am writing about Trotsky in the 1930s. The immediate context for this talk, and for my concern with these issues, is my current book project on Leon Trotsky during the 1930s. But these issues, the ones that I stated before, are central, vital matters in any kind of historical investigation. They are most in need of discussion when the subject is the history of the Soviet Union during the Stalin period. So I want to begin with a dramatic example of how Soviet history of the Stalin period, and therefore world history, is falsified by virtually all historians today. It's a striking instance of falsification, cover-up, and denial. I'm going to pause again because you can do it funny. It's about the military conspiracy of 1937 in the Soviet Union, sometimes called the Tukhachevsky affair. You haven't heard of it? That's okay, just bear with me. Since 1989, we have had archival evidence from a source in Adolf Hitler's German government, dating from January 1937, that the Soviet military was indeed planning a coup d'etat and a reversal of Soviet policy towards friendship with Nazi Germany. Archival German evidence. Dramatic, right? But let me ask you, has anyone here ever heard of this evidence?
No.
No, you haven't. I know that. Because it has been completely ignored since it was discovered in 1989. Some years ago, I contacted the Czech National Archive because that's where this document is held. And they sent me a very good facsimile, free of charge, email. Then I paid a professional translator, somebody who professionally translates from Czech to English, $250 to translate it into English and give me the rights to publish it, which someday I'll do. There's a PhD thesis here, probably a book, for any scholar of the period, but nothing. It doesn't fit the prevailing framework, what I have called elsewhere the anti-Stalin paradigm. And no self-respecting scholar in Soviet studies, Eastern European history, and so forth, would formulate and investigate the hypothesis that Stalin did not frame Marshal Tukhachevsky and the other 7 Soviet military commanders tried and executed with him. That the Soviet commanders were indeed